Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramp, here to usher you into the last weekend in April, as we're going to jump right into May next week, and I'll have First Friday stuff for next week, which is always fun because there's always a bunch of new art galleries and a bunch of new art popping in the scene of Missoula as downtown finally comes alive, as the farmers market starts rearing its old head, but you guys can still contend with the idea that markets are still happening at the Southgate Mall next to Shields, where they have the Missoula Valley Winter Market happening every single Saturday. So some MCAT related news before I jump into some city council. We just wrapped up our 35th anniversary here on Earth Day on the 22nd, just this past Tuesday. And we'd like to thank the people of Missoula for coming out and supporting us all these years, from our city council coverage, local archiving of events and causes, overall flexibility to best serve the local community in renting camera equipment, editing services, production expertise, and creating various media projects come to fruition. Here's to another 35 years and a continued service for Missoula's media-making community. In other MCAT-related news, we're also going into May with another after-school program with the Zootown Homeschool Group. We're continuing our lessons with podcasting, editing, and basic tutorials of our studio space. Camera usage, the camera that I'm using right now to point at me for your guys' enjoyment, and more. And all classes are available online at mcat.org, or you can come on down to MCAT directly. We're on the first floor of the Missoula Public Library. City Council started off with some proclamations about volunteers and Earth Day, which just happened on Tuesday. Among the topics during the public hearing was the annexation of the last property in the Flynn Lane Mullen Build project area, which has basically been like the houses that have already been on that lot of land, surrounded by farmland that has been redeveloped into high-density residential. Essentially, they're annexing this part of it. This has been worth mentioning as they plan to use this space for 55 and older living aging adults to create a community of walkable business and recreation. So John Fisher with the Inland Group is with the developer and the property management that are going to be in charge of handling the operation of this 55 and up living center. So without further ado, here is John.
The Inland Group, although we're based out of Spokane, we own and operate our affinity communities throughout the western United States, one currently in Billings. We're very excited to be finally in Missoula after looking at this city and market for quite some time, and we think found the perfect location for a successful community that can serve residents here in Missoula. One thing I just wanted to mention, there was a question during the Land Use Committee meeting. I forget which council member asked it about the 55 plus restriction in terms of fair housing or residency. Not sure who asked that, but just wanted to mention that specific senior developed communities are exempt through the Housing for Older Peoples Act in 1995, which exempted it out of the fair housing laws, where you can age restrict communities as long as they were purpose built for that intended demographic, which is what our affinity communities are today.
Price points are a third of the costs for assisted living and the dreaded old folks home. Not to mention getting older and needing to downsize will retain independence with services nearby, just in case. Think of it as a transitional housing for aging populations. So this is actually, if you haven't read this already in the article, this is going to house more than 155 dwelling units for 55 and older living. The city also appointed 2 new firefighters to Missoula, as the levy and grants show the budgetary support in place to hire 2 new guys in the stations. You know, they're getting some more money this year, so they have a lot more on the horizon, including a potential Station 6. They talk a little bit more about this during the budget committee hearing, where they talk about all the essential services inside the city of Missoula. That's a 4.5-hour meeting, and I didn't get too much into it, but there is some breaking information coming from there as well that has to do with the Parking Commission. But of course, as we wrap up this meeting, I just want to jump up to the legislative session. I mostly covered a lot of the stuff about Flynn Lane and the committee meetings from last Friday, so we're going to jump right into some legislative update information. Here's Jessica Miller with Essential Services talking about the bills that are impacting the state and therefore Missoula's community.
Day 90 of the session is still scheduled to be May 5th, 2 weeks from tonight. sounds like the temperature in Helena is that they will likely try to adjourn before that, but we don't have a set date yet. There's still quite a bit that they need to accomplish. This will be my last Monday evening report because there is no council meeting next week, and then by May 5th, again, the legislature will be adjourned. So I will be bringing a longer report, a comprehensive download of the session to a committee of the whole meeting after some of the bills have leveled out and we see whether or not Governor Gianforte has signed, vetoed, et cetera. So at some point in May or early June, depending on the timing of the signing of some of those bills, I'll be bringing that report.
All right, and so an overall central kind of overview of everything that happens within the city. HB 924. Actually, wait, no. Let's just hope there isn't any last-minute veto like the last session. Jessica talks about more to expect over the next 2 weeks, which are going to wrap up the legislative session and just some of the things that are happening within them.
So as far as specific bills, last week I was incorrect about SB 90. I thought that it had been blasted to the floor. That motion had actually failed. So SB 90 did not come to the floor at all. I believe that there were 3 blast attempts to bring it from committee onto the floor, and all 3 of those failed. However, portions of SB 90 have been partially incorporated into HB 924, which is a large state spending bill. I don't know what the prognosis of that bill is, but some of the sentiment of SB 90, which is tourist dollars going to property tax relief, is in that larger, more comprehensive bill. Senate Bill 2, which is, again, one that has us concerned for the treatment of urban renewal districts upon their expiration. That bill is going to a conference committee this week, and so our lobbyist is keeping us up to date on what the composition of that committee will look like, and hopefully keep tabs on where that bill is going to land.
Among the bills mentioned as well was HB 924, which is essentially a trust for the state of Montana to help revive and save funds for Montana for a rainy day. Since the current economic crisis, it seems appropriate to look into those avenues for additional revenue protections for the state of Montana. One of the arguments against the state's continued efforts on Medicaid is that the federal government currently covers around 90% of Medicaid costs, while the state pays up to 10% matching. In Montana, that equates to roughly $100 million. That's pretty good, but that's 10%. So imagine if Congress were to cut many of those proposed things with Medicaid. Montana would either have to replace it or just get rid of it completely. But because, so the Fed is something states are at the mercy of, much like our community is at the mercy of the state. So mind you, the budget for the states last session was $19.3 billion for the last 2 years. We ain't that big of an economy. South Dakota has at least $4 billion annually, and California is about $297 billion. And just for fun, if you divide that per person in the latest census, that's $4,390 per person in North Dakota and about $7,637 per person in California. But let's get back to Montana. Jessica talks about some of those bills that have been tabled, brought back, and molded into current bills looking to help homeowners and property taxpayers in Montana. So here's Jessica Miller.
House Bill 231, which is Governor Gianforte's primary property tax bill, was actually defeated and then reconsidered and will be placed back on second reading tomorrow. However, that bill has had portions of it incorporated into Senate Bill 542. That bill is still controversial because there are some provisions for Billings and Sunburst, the way they have their charters. They have fixed levies, so whereas if our property taxes vary widely, we can kind of float our mills. Billings and Sunburst don't have that, and so there's some backfilling being made available at the state level. So those portions of House Bill 231 and Senate Bill 542 are one of the things that remain kind of contentious. And Senate Bill 542 is just the prime example of what begins to happen this time of year. Senate Bill 542, the original version was 2.5 pages, and then it was amended, and version 2 is 45 pages because it has had other property tax bills inserted into it.
Yep. And the thing about a lot of these bills, especially in the state of Montana, based on a constitution, is roughly one change per bill. Like, you can't have a bundle of bills tied together for one thing, as this one is more to do with property taxes, and so they kind of attach a lot of things to it, but it has to do within the vein of property taxes and cannot be deterred from many other services and other programs. So it's kind of like a one-stop bill, and that's kind of like per state constitutional law. And this essentially will freeze property values for 2 years, thus kicking the can down the road, with plenty of our bills looking to give a $400 rebate for property owners. And, you know, here's some of the bylines related to Montana Free Press coverage: is a homestead policy that reduces tax valuation for primary residence and long-term rental properties. $400 per household tax rebate available this year as a stopgap measure while the state revenue department implements a homestead provision. Revised tax valuation rates that would only apply for 2025's property taxes. A different set of graduated rates would apply to homestead eligible properties starting in 2026. Rate adjustments, so this property and agricultural land, including provisions intended to shield small business properties as tax burdens, is shifted off of residential taxpayers, and an opportunity for eligible property coverage. Property owners who fail to apply for homestead exemption to get a refund if they successfully appeal their tax bill. Language intended to address conflict with the Billings and Sunburst care charters that could otherwise force these municipalities to keep their tax collection from adjusting to accommodate the bill's rate shifts. So there's a lot of stuff happening there, a lot of bills, a lot of things going back and forth. And, you know, these aren't necessarily solid in place, but we'll talk a little bit more further in the meeting as the Montana income tax is getting a reduction for Montana's 70% of their revenue, and I'll talk a little bit about that later in the show. So we're going to jump in to budget and finance as they gave presentations from many different areas, from central services, administrative, city clerk's office, HR/risk management, police, fire, and parking commission. Essentially, each of these departments gave a presentation on the 4.5-hour meeting. I watched parts of it, and there ain't too many things of note, because as they get closer to the actual budget season, this is more of a presentation. So usually these kind of things happen all summer long as they're talking about this and things, adding things, removing things, figuring out how to make the general fund for the city of Missoula work. And so they'll wrap this up by the end of August, where they hope to have a fiscal year budget for 2026. However, for those folks that live near the Hip Strip, the Parking Commission is planning to install those parking kiosks in many areas to expand their parking permitting areas. So essentially paid parking in certain regions. So if you live in and around the Hip Strip, and not to mention Hellgate High School, you can expect to have to pay for parking. So here is a kind of a rough map that I took a screenshot of from the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. The areas labeled in blue are essentially the areas where they want to expand currently, and essentially these will be the areas where people will have to pay to park. And so this is Higgins Avenue, the one that kind of goes down the middle right here, and then the rest in the corner, especially down here, is how you transfer from Higgins to Brooks, and of course the high school, which is in this general region right here. From my personal perspective on this matter, it really feels like a lot of parents are going to have to pay their kids' parking tickets moving forward if they put that parking in the Hellgate High School area. So, but you know, as we're jumping, we're going to talk about housing redevelopment and community programs. They talk about updates from the housing sprint and the inevitable closure of the Johnson Street shelter. This is actually Daniel Carlino's and City Council's Christian Jordan's resolution to keep funding the Johnson Street shelter through 2026, rather than the closure, which is happening by end of August 2025. Daniel Carlino, City Council, gave an update on this, and this is what he had to say.
That, we're in this situation in society where not everybody is able to have a roof over their head and have the housing that we all need. Housing, of course, is a need for everybody, along with like food and water and other basic needs, but it's reliant on a for-profit system, which is leaving many in our community without access to housing. And recently, We had a couple ordinance changes that, added fines for people that are unsheltered, or added criminal charges with the misdemeanor charges. And a lot of the rationale for that was, from council members, was, oh, people just need to go into the shelter. Well, now we're seeing that we're taking away that option from them as well, leaving nothing but a criminal system to handle a problem that can't be handled by the criminal system. Really, the answer is housing and shelter, and without that, we're just going to be moving people in circles. So I'll start by just sharing the resolution.
All right, so the resolution essentially is to help continue the funding. Daniel has been an advocate for homeless rights in Missoula and believes the city's short-sightedness with no follow-up plan for the housing sprint will essentially cause a humanitarian crisis, very much like how we dealt with a couple summers ago, where urban camping was such a huge problem, and the Ninth Circuit Court basically allowed, if there was not enough shelter beds, people were allowed to camp in public spaces, and then it got bucked up to SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically says that you can't urban camp, and then many other communities, much like Missoula, started to fine people for illegally camping in areas, and hence we have the anti-camping ordinance on the backdrop of the closure of the Johnson Street shelter, which is considered a low barrier shelter. So Christian Jordan, City Council, talks about the potential costs moving forward by supporting this.
Costs in the criminal justice system are incalculable, but will cost thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to prosecute folks trying to seek shelter when they are unable to be placed or lose their placement through the housing sprint. And also keep in mind, it costs $140 per night per person in our local jail. That all comes out of our local tax assessments. Additionally, when folks are not housed, our local emergency departments and urgent care centers see an increase in visits from the unhoused for a variety of reasons that include untended wounds, loss of prescriptions for mental health management, and simply needing some TLC because they don't have that provided by caring staff from the shelter. And finally, the costs to our Community Care Connect team, our mobile support team, and our HOT team, who will not be able to find their clients as easily or as it is to find them in congregate shelter. They will need more time to find their clients, and if my anticipated outcome is true, that these folks that are housed will not be able to maintain it, or that folks who weren't housed through the sprint become survival campers, the effectiveness of these teams will be diminished, costing taxpayers more.
All right, and that was her position on that. And they've both been speaking in advocacy for this for quite some time. And as we dive in a little bit further, we go to city council members and community members and people within their central service and community planning. Erin Pean talks about the car permits for folks and the people involved with the compliance to urban camping policies. So she talks a little bit more about the people who are not staying in the shelter, but are utilizing the permitting services by living out of their car.
And then more recently, in last year's budget, we added 2 additional compliance officers to run the vehicle parking permit program. The vehicle parking permit program has been an overwhelming success. We have 65 vehicles that are permitted to legally park in public right-of-way across the community, and are getting support from that team in terms of trash removal, sewage disposal, to help them remain in compliance with that permitting program. So those staff, you could couch that as enforcement, but they're really running that program and supporting people and staying compliant with those permits.
All right, and so that's what's going on with some of that. But that also, if you really think about it, while the city is looking for positions to fill many roles that Parks and Rec have taken upon themselves, Amber Sherrill, City Council, reiterates the funding cliff for these shelters, which has prompted them to close it altogether. And mind you, there's also some interesting back and forth that happens in this particular comment, and so I'm going to leave it at this because some tensions get a little bit hotter in the City Council chambers. So here is Amber Sherrill.
So we need some checks on those numbers that I just heard, because we still need to keep a jail open. We still need compliance. We still need cleanups for our community. Money that the hospital spends seeing patients is not money that we can just pluck out of that bucket and put into our general fund. There is a lot of money being spent as a community on this topic, but it's not all money that you can move around back and forth, and it's not all things that we can just stop to fund a shelter for a year because we knew this was coming. The ARPA money had run out.
Again, point of order, is this a question or a
We will
commentary?
continue, so
Kristen, you
We
are
will
out of
continue-
order, and we listened to you present, so now we're asking
Ms.
questions.
Jones, I'm a presenter.
We're going to be out of order if you keep interrupting me.
I'm a
all right?
presenter, and so I got to present.
You got to present,
but
and we
I
listened
have
to you.
always been
All right, we're
asked
going
to
to
get
adjourn
straight
for
to
5
the-
minutes.
All right, and they adjourned for 5 minutes, and then they came back to reset and talk some more about things. Christian Jordan, along with Daniel Colino, were in the minority on council as the 10-2 voted down any relative support for continuation of this shelter. This meeting was on hold for a little while as they met up again. Christian Jordan mentioned that the city had $3 million devoted to a rollout of the anti-camping ordinance that could have especially gone to the shelter's $1.8 million budget, but many on council disputed those numbers as a means to take from other funded areas beyond those $3 million claims. So Daniel Colino thinks Missoula Redevelopment Agency should kick in some money to help with this, as it was used for vertical construction for the Scott Street North Side affordable housing development.
Yeah, we use a portion, we fund a portion of the funding for this shelter or an alternative shelter site should come from MRA remittance, in my opinion, if we're looking for places of where to fund it. And yes, the other money from the MRA would go towards the county and the schools, and the county's historically helped us fund the shelter, and the schools could certainly need the money. So yeah, I'm not saying that the entire thing should be funded from MRA, but a large portion I believe should. And just this past year, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars from the MRA towards market rate housing new developments.
I appreciate that. To clarify, when you talk about the MRA should fund stuff, you are talking purely remittance.
Remittance, or if the Poverello or a different shelter partner wanted to make an MRA request to fund a redevelopment, that would include a shelter. That would be an option, but I'm speaking to the remittance, yeah.
Okay. And
Just one last one, Mr. Nugent, we got to move on now.
I guess I could save my other questions for Monday night. I would say that I would be curious what your last statement, where if the Poverello or another organization wanted to make an MRA request, can you point to somewhere in code annotated where we could spend that sort of money? Because generally it's not for vertical construction. And you can wait and answer that on Monday. You can do research on it. But when we're talking about what the MRA could spend money on, I want to make sure that I understand what you're basing that on.
Sure. Yeah, I can get back to you on it on Monday, but yeah, I was speaking to the remittance, but also, yeah, anything that was needed to redevelop a site that isn't vertical construction, could, come through an MRA request. But what I'm speaking to fund it is that's part of how we could fund it is with a remittance.
All right. So, yep, that was the justification by figuring out how to fund these shelters. Some back and forth between Daniel and Mike Nugent. They're talking about some more details they'd want to present for council on Monday, which is going to be happening May 5th. It's kind of hard to sum up these meetings as they spoke on many of the minutiae of the departments affected by homelessness in and around Johnson Street Shelter. 2 years ago, Missoula had a major issue with parking encampments and cleanup efforts that totaled that when they had the regular cleanup for these urban encampments, they claimed, the city said that it would be $40,000 to $50,000 a month with services related to rental of gear, essentially personnel to help mitigate the trash and disposal per month. And then as we jump into public comment, Sage Bennett, who has been speaking adamantly as with the homeless folks, and also is speaking on behalf of Forward Montana, spoke in this meeting, and this is what she has to say during public comment. And she's been a big advocate for the homeless in our community.
I have talked with hundreds of people in our community since the announcement of the closure of the Johnson Street shelter. I've talked with people who want to see the shelter stay open and folks who would like the shelter to stay closed. Regardless of their opinion, everyone agrees that they don't want 100+ people tossed out on the street, fined between $50 to $500, and given a misdemeanor charge for simply trying to survive. You keep telling us that your hands are tied, that this is a fiscal problem that you can't solve. We know that you have many options to solve this issue of funding, like all of the ones that were brought up here today. Even your constituents have looked into the fiscal budgets and have done research on this topic and know, even if you might feel like there isn't money to be moved around, that there is. This is just as deceitful as your decision to provide no transparency with the updates to Ordinance 12.60. Your website still is not updated with this information, and these updates happened months ago. Updates like the mayor no longer being required to find solutions to this crisis with simple things such as lockers for folks to store their possessions, trash collection, public restrooms, and other services. Or the charge being changed to misdemeanor, or the fact that people are not given a warning before they are charged with said misdemeanor. Your constituents, at the very least, deserve transparency. And we do not forget how you justified the Ordinance 12.60 that essentially criminalizes the unhoused by saying that we have enough space at Johnson Street.
All right. So there we go. There was her public comment on that. We also, so she spoke in past meetings as someone who has advocated for homelessness in Missoula. Essentially, whether you think it's too expensive or not, the moral economics of this matter is very cold with the closure, and not having any other options for people to stay or have some kind of sanctuary for consistent in their lives that are just not there. Chloe Carlson, mind you, public comment also spoke on the housing sprint and how they feel, how is it going through their experience with their advocacy for homelessness.
But hey, at least 9 people got re-enrolled in the bureaucratic black hole known as the coordinated entry system. Nothing screams progress like paperwork. And then there's the Johnson Street bathroom heist. You took a $500,000 asset allocated from MRA funds, by the way, and donated it to the county for $120,000 because math is hard. And sitting over at TSOS, where it will serve a privileged few instead of, the entire unhoused population it was meant for. What is this, a budget strategy or a magic trick? Either way, the only thing disappearing here is public trust. So, council, here's your pop quiz. Is the housing sprint abysmal performance a deliberate strategy to lower expectations or just a happy accident?
All right, so that was the public comment to wrap up this particular meeting. With 10 no's and 2 yes for this resolution, this will go to committee report for further discussion for the May 5th City Council meeting. However, the two schools of thought are simple as helping people also legally makes you liable for them. Imagine you invite someone into your home who is struggling and then they sue you for slipping out and hurting themselves on your property. Liability and responsibility clear have monetized costs that the city will not be able to pay for those with tax-weary residents breathing down their necks. At what point do we as citizens of Missoula think of homeless people as stakeholders in our community? Up next, we have a video from the Zootown Homeschool Group, and we're gonna jump right into that, and then we're gonna throw it over to some Pre-Critic, where we judge a movie based on absolutely another thing but my biases towards movies.
Azia, für alle euch mit eurer Habe, Sabbat.
Rise.
I am the Candle Guardian. It's you.
Yes, it is. And now it's time to bully!
Bully Man.
survive the Candle Guardian. Now let's see what Punk Man thinks about it.
It would be my honor to take down Bully Man and the Candle Guardian once again!
Steve, I wish I could be a human again. It sucks being a jack-o'-lantern. Steve, I know what you're thinking. Please don't take me on a quest again.
I have a quest for you. First, you go past the Valley of Desolation. Then, past the Mountains of Green. Past the Metal Mines and to the Monster Cage. Then, and only then, after you defeat the dreaded monster, will you find the exact same candle that made you like that. And it will turn you back to normal. I will use my wish and save you.
Okay, let's just get a move on.
Woohoo! Let's do this, Steve. Let's go. Yahoo!
Friendship!
This, my friend, is the Valley of Desolation.
Okay, this is just the park. Let's go.
Fine.
Stop by this tree. Stop by this tree.
Oh, man. No, we've been running forever.
Welcome to the
I don't care.
Green Mountains. Yeah, I'm down.
Welcome, my friend, to the Metal Mine.
Who's he?
You mean the Healy Turf?
What do you mean, Healy Turf, little boy?
You really want to beat me up, Short Stacks? Yeah, Short Stacks.
Dude, I'm like 6 inches taller than you. What are you talking about?
Let's go. Over here. Over here, come on.
We can do it.
Come on. Over here. Come on, Steve. It should be right here.
Where are they?
You've always fall into our bully and Candleman traps.
Bully Man! Jack, I can finally get my revenge on you from a year ago, or whenever I died.
You should have stayed dead, Candle Guardian.
Bully, it's about time I had that fight with you. How about now? Oh, wait a minute. Person who doesn't exist, say what? What?
You guys playing with sticks?
Billy! No! Billy!
Wow, you're really bumming me out.
No! Billy! 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 Billy!
He's already dead.
Oh, Billy, Billy, Billy. Come back, Billy.
He's dead. Look.
Hey, found this cool fucking time magic. I make you alive. I make you alive.
It's not timing on.
I make you alive!
It's been out of magic the entire time.
Will I be a pumpkin forever?
Yes.
Am I real? Like, is there a bus?
All right, we are back. Let's talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend. It's time for a pre-critic, where I prejudge a movie based on absolutely nothing but my biases towards movies in general. Kicking things off is The Accountant 2. This time there are two of them, and they are brothers who run numbers, but the run games, they run the guns better. Enjoy this action flick that originally started with a guy who seemed to have OCD, quiet action guy, and then he has a brother, and then they have a good old time, and it's essentially like he's a mundane guy who's a secret badass, but in this next sequel movie, apparently we already know he's a badass, so they just kind of throw that out the window and they're just doing badass things together. He has a brother who's just as badass as him, and they have to work through some childhood trauma as they kill the enemy and fight the generic villain of the week. Then we got Legend of Ochi. Watch as a fantasy and post-apocalyptic setting brings an E.T., the extraterrestrial vibe to this movie, where you'd think the creature is CGI, but it's actually everything around them is CGI. It's a puppet, so they use old school Baby Yoda things to kind of self-fund this passion project. There is a young lady who finds a creature and must get Ochi to the thing before it is captured, and she never sees it again in the future. All right, so then we have Until Dawn, another video game adaptation. As the later parts of springtime, we have less room for horror films that didn't get the Halloween release. So hold on to your butts and get ready for actually the movie, as each time these college students in a cabin in the woods must band together to survive until dawn, hence the movie title. This one is more or less a video game adaptation, and more like a game. They are letting the characters get plenty of do-overs to get it right. So essentially, it's a gimmicky movie. They die, they come back in a new horror film because they're genre blending. So there's your gimmick. It's a roller coaster, also merry-go-round and Ferris wheel. A bunch of other movies coming out. Here's a bunch of trash movies that's pulling out of the trash can. Bears on a Ship. I can assure you that there are bears on this ship. Cool. It's essentially a horror film with monsters being a bear, and just so happens to be on a boat. I think they exhausted the animal in the space genre. And then as we go further down, we have Skill House. Movie stars in a horror film about Hollywood and celebrity culture, starring people you recognize but ask, are these people that famous to be in this kind of movie pretending to be more famous? It's like the Doctor Strangelove of Hollywood, which, you know, I never actually saw Doctor Strangelove. The Shrouds. David Cronenberg, director, brings back that one French guy, one-hit wonder from The Artist, to share dead bodies of their loved ones to decay underground while you can watch them. It's basically putting a Twitch stream on your headstone. Then we have a documentary. I actually thought this was a movie, and we're just like, oh cool, Cheech and Chong are actually doing a movie that actually would do well. But enjoy this documentary where we finally know whatever happened to Dave and if he actually was real the whole time. Watch Lifetime Stoner Buds Tommy Chong and Cheech Marin as they talk about movies instead of making the actual last Cheech and Chong movie. By the way, these movies were for a very specific audience, and yet created a basis of inside jokes about weed for many other movies to take a hold of as well. Up next, we have a brand new Dubbin Stuff from the 1945 movie, comedy movie, Midnight Manhunt.
I'm the janitor. I'm the janitor. Whoa! Huh. This will make me smoking my cigar look more realistic. Let's try it. Yeah, not so bad. Cigars. Doesn't taste like there's anything in the cigar. It's just paper. Oh well. I guess better save it for some other time. All right, my oral fixation is all done. Here, could you hold this for me? I appreciate it. All right, back to sweeping. Gotta make money. Gotta pay the bills. Doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. All right, sweep under the rug. No one will oversee. Someone call the police. What's going on? Did you search my locker or anything? Because I can explain. I need to call the police. Mannequins is a dead body. Oh, can I see? Yeah, sure, but we have to call someone first. Get out of my way. I gotta go call somebody. Huh. Well, seems like most things are mannequins around here. Let's see. You said it's at this table over here? Uh-huh. You're right. Well, looks like mannequins to me, but... Oh, geez, that's not good. I told you. I gotta go. Oh, this is the police. Wait. What do you think you're doing? It's about a dead body. It's in the store. Don't you understand? We're risking our jobs. You can't just tell people there's a dead body out here. Up a dead body. We're having trouble getting customers. I know I'm just a janitor, but we got to stick to the story. We didn't find nobody. We just leave the body here. No, that's not the right thing to do. We got to... What? Tell the police that we were here when the body was discovered? They're going to suspect us. We better get out of here. Please, don't make me do this. This isn't right. I can't spin this into a money-making adventure. Last time I was in a place that had a dead body, they were just like, I don't want to go to the dead body place. What if I become a dead body? That's not cool. Well, looking at dead bodies isn't cool. It's not like Stand By Me. You're forever changed. Well, I've seen Stand By Me. It's not as good as Everyone says it is. Hot take. Oh, but Rob Reiner directed that movie. I did like and When Harry Met Sally, but still, we have to get out of here before anyone discovers the dead body. We don't want any of this. Well, everything you're saying is wrong. If they find the body with us, we're just as much in trouble. So what if they find the body and they interview us later, and then we can confess? But regardless, we're perfectly fine. Let's get out of here. All right, grab your coat, grab your hat, whatever. Let's get out of here. Can I at least get pie from the diner? Is it because pie rhymes with die?
Welcome back, guys. Let's jump right into some events that are happening in Missoula. Stories on the Landscape, National Association of Interpretation Workshop. This is through the Montana Natural History Center. This is a workshop that is going to be a whole weekend trip from the 23rd through the 26th. This is in the heart of Missoula, whether you're a natural enthusiast, educator, or simply love exploring Montana's rich landscapes and stories. This event is packed with engaging activities, expert-led sessions, immersive field trips, and dynamic keynote speakers designed for all. And you can go online for more information. Get Lit program series, cooking demo with Mariah Gladstone. This is where indigenous foods, where do we get them? How do we prepare for them? Made in native North American foods, both cultivated and harvested, were removed from our diets through intentional colonial effect. Gladstone is leading a way for food movement that is revitalizing and incorporating these important foods into the contemporary diet. During her cooking demonstration, she will prepare one of the original recipes and showcase other indigenous foods that can easily be used in your own kitchen. Forestry Days is happening at Fort Missoula today and tomorrow, kicking off at 9 a.m. This is a great event for people. The Forestry Department, Forest Services, and stuff like that love putting on these kinds of events. Chainsaws, climbing up trees, all sorts of fun things for people to enjoy watching and doing. Stained Glass Workshop, they're doing sun catchers. If you're interested, Stained Glass is a very fun activity, and if you want to learn more about that, Lifelong Learning Center does this and many other programs, kind of like a one-stop shop for continuing education, brushing up on some things, and general GED work. Missoula Food Bank and Meal Distribution, 10 a.m. to about 1 p.m. This is a great way for people who struggle economically with having cheap, nutritious food while also not breaking the bank. Tiny Tales at Missoula Public Library every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Butterfly Release at 11 a.m. at the Missoula Butterfly House. Swan Valley Storytime at Sealy Swan High School Library at 11 a.m. Lunch at Missoula Senior Center every day, Monday through Friday at 11:30. And Paul Varela Center does theirs every day, including weekends. Yarns and Watercolor at 12 noon. This is a great way for people to stitch and crochet, but also have options to watercolor, and this is all on the 4th floor every Friday at noon. Lego Club every Friday at 2:30 p.m. and then as we go into the summer, they're going to throw that over to 3:30 in the afternoon starting in the summertime. So look out for that. Celebrate Your Life, Rituals and Ceremonies at Missoula Public Library starting at 3 p.m. Join at the library workshop about funerals, celebration of life, and memorial services. No matter your age, thinking about rituals you want to die can bring peace and comfort to surroundings through this tough topic. It can also help you support others in planning what they want, and the workshop will include information about these topics, discussions, and what to ask questions. Mind you, if I have I prefer a funeral, and if anyone ever did a celebration of life for my life, I would come back and I would destroy everyone. Just kidding. Trailhead River, I just don't like the concept of celebration of life. It always bothers me. I don't know, it's been overused, so it's not for me, but I would rather just have a generic funeral where everyone's sad. Yeah, that would be nice. Trailhead River Sports River Rally 2025. This is at 4 p.m. This is April 25th and 26th, and first of many river rallies. This is going to be starting at Trailhead River Sports at 2505 South Garfield Street. Yeah. They also have a boat swap, and this is essentially looking for people for swapping used paddle sports gear with opportunities to receive professional guidance from buying used gear from their staff, as well as brands such as Sawyer Oars, NRS, Rocky Mountain Rafts, IRE, and more. Drop-off for selling at the boat takes place between 4 and 6 p.m. and then 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturday. Extensional Astrophysics at the University of Montana. This is through the Family Payne Native American Center at the University of Montana. The journey through existence, being one of the smallest building block blocks going all the way up to the largest view we have of our known universe. Strumming Bird Vagabond is going to be at 10 Spoon Winery playing some folk music at 6 p.m. Marie Smith Jazz Quintet is going to be at Zootown Arts Community Center at 6:30 p.m. tonight. Wolf and the Moon will be playing at the Old Post tonight at 7. Queer Prom is going to be featuring Adult Night at the Fairgrounds at 7 p.m. They have tea night on Saturday night. Fuzzy Bee at Cranky Sam Public House, karaoke at the Jack Saloon. Westside Theater is doing a play, Is This It?, in their last weekend to enjoy. Dance in Concert, University of Montana, their Montana Theater. This is going to be this weekend only, featuring the most finely crafted, developed, and performed choreography of the seasons. The University Theater and Dance Department at the University Dance in Concert. Don't want to miss it. Brian Kurt Coster's Boulevard is going to be playing some rock music at Monks at 8 p.m. tonight. Cash for Junkers at Union Club. And this Saturday, we're going to have Kiwanis Pancake Breakfast at St. Anthony Parish. Missoula Valley Winter Market, as always, every Saturday at 9 a.m. before the Farmers Market kicks off this summer. Tile installation with Deb Home Resources is doing a second installment of the popular Tile installation with Deb instructional clinic. Learn about long-term home resource expert Deb. During this class, participants will learn the ins and outs of everything tile from one of the favorite home resource team members. Tile project can be intimidating at the start and often become a complex project to finish, and then Deb will share years of experience and knowledge, giving participants the tools they need to succeed. Forestry Days, Day 2 started at 9 a.m. on Saturday. You have the 53rd annual Riverbank Run at the YMCA hosted downtown by the Missoula, so you want to look out for street closures on Broadway and Higgins starting at 9 a.m. Makerspace walk-in hours at 10 a.m. This is a great way for people to 3D print and more. Introduction to Traditional Chinese Medicine Part 2. Story time is at Missoula Public Library at 10:30 every Saturday at on the second floor. Sage and Sky Bridal Fair at 9 Mile Community Center. So if it is the summer season and you're looking to look for wedding dresses and wedding information, they're doing a Sage and Sky Bridal Shower at 9 Mile Community Center starting at 11 a.m. International Wildlife Film Festival Virtual Fest. For those of you who missed out on Thursday, the 48th International Winter Wildlife Film Festival screening at the Roxy. They can stream their virtual fest online, and you can find out more information through the Roxy's website and the International Wildlife Film Festival's website as well. Trailhead River Sports, they're doing their Day 2 Sports Day starting at 12 noon. This is also doing their River Sports gear swap starting from 12 p.m. to about 4 p.m. Kitten and cat adoption at Betty's Divine, the thrift shop in the Hip Strip at 12 noon. MCAT Saturday drop-ins every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. Rogers and Hammerstein's Cinderella is going to be hosted at the Children's Theater at 2 p.m. They also have some shows at the 7:30 p.m. and weekend long. So it's essentially Cinderella, the musical. Queer Prom, family dance party at Missoula Fairgrounds at 2 in the afternoon. Live music at the Drive is going to be at the Troth, playing some jazz music there at 4 p.m. Pot Sketch is going to be at the University of Montana's UC Ballroom. It's going to be featuring Pot Sketch. Features small-scale drawings, sculptures, and ceramic works by generously donated from over 100 contributing artists. Fundraised during Pot Sketch will be helped to sustain Clay Studio of Missoula. 9th Annual Putt and Pole fundraiser at Highlander Beer. Missoula Brewing Company is going to be hosting a trap and golf tournament with wildlife firefighting neighbors for a fun day fundraising in remembrance of Highlander. Register your 5-person trap or a golf team and show up at Highlander on the night of the event, starting at 6 p.m. on Saturday. Book event with Arnold Smoke Elzer and Donna Love at Fact and Fiction, right through the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex with Montana Wilderness Packer and Storyteller. Fireside Mule Tales by Montana Packer and Storyteller Smoke Elder with Donna Love, and explore the majesty of the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex from the front of Mule Pack String. Learn the importance of wilderness and read the delightful tales of Smoke's favorite mules. The workhorse of the wilderness. One is outdoorsy and the other one is a children's book author. You get to learn all from them at 6 p.m. at Fact and Fiction. And then at the Pacific Islanders Club performance at Montgomery Distillery at 6 p.m. Kick off the season from the University of Montana's Pacific Islanders Club hula performance at Montgomery Distillery at 6 p.m. on Saturday. Britt Aronson is going to be at Ten Spoon Winery playing with Ron Meisner and Damian Margot at 6 p.m. Queer Prom, they're doing a teen night on Saturday at 7 p.m. Jim Messina and the Roadrunners, there's going to be rock music at the Wilma at 7 p.m. on Saturday. Montana Moonlight Studios is hosting country social dancing at 7 p.m. Live jazz at Flippers at 8 p.m. Civil Strife Spiked Mind is going to be playing some rock music at Monk's. Blue Point Bluegrass Band is going to be at the Jack Saloon at 8 p.m. Solid State Karaoke at the West Side Lanes. Outer Ranch Hands at Union Club. Chris Moon every Saturday at the Badlander playing some DJ music. And then left on 10th is going to be at the Top Hat playing some funk music to wrap up your Saturday night. And then Sunday, volunteering at Fort Missoula Native Plant Garden starting at 9 a.m. through the Montana Natural History Center. Jazz and Brunch is going to be at Finn and Porter. Speed Puzzle Competition at Draftworks Brewing Company at 12 noon. Pain Savvy Walk and Talk. This is a support group for people living with chronic pain, and this meets every Sunday at 1 p.m. at Missoula Public Library. Spring Session, afternoon beginning pottery at Clay Studio starting at 1 p.m. Five Valley According Club at Missoula Senior Center at 1 p.m. Breakthrough, Type 1 Diabetes, formerly JDRF Community Walk. This is to help raise money for the annual Walk to Cure Diabetes. Will be held on Sunday at 2 p.m. at the Paddleheads baseball field. Registration begins at noon. The 3-mile walk begins at 2 p.m. with snacks and raffle prizes afterwards. Then there's the Peacemaker of the Year Award. They're going to invite you to honor Brendan Work as the Peacemaker of the Year. This is from 2 to 4 p.m. at Holy Spirit Episcopal Church at 130 South 6th Street East. And this is going to be through the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center, and MCAT will be there archiving it for later viewing. Joe Martinez, Kyle Hunter, Dano Simpson, and Still Gone Family Mystic will be playing country music at Monk's on Sunday night, 7 p.m. Comedy open mic at 8 p.m. at VFW, and rocking karaoke at the Sunrise Saloon to wrap up your Sunday. And as we kind of get into it a little bit further, I do want to mention some news items as well, as we're talking about some things that are expecting some things happening out of many areas, including the president signing into new mines that are going to affect the state of Montana. So one of the, let's see here. By expediting the process, permits in 10 mines across the U.S. have been greenlit to begin operation. The Cabinet Mountains in Lincoln County were among one of those imparting the community of Libby west of Kalispell. News that Libby project would be included on the permitting dashboard comes just weeks after President Trump to sign an executive order calling for an increased mineral production, particularly in federal lands. Federal officials say the increase is needed to remain competitive with other major mining producers like China. The mining company in question is Helka, which I spoke about a couple of years ago during the pandemic, as their leadership was part of the Pegasus group that left 3 communities holding the bag in environmental cleanup efforts in central to eastern Montana. Mike Satter of Helka, Director of Governmental Affairs, wrote to the email of Montana Free Press that the inclusion of Lincoln County project in Trump's executive order did not mean the company would not skip permitting steps, nor would it change the company's 16-year timeline of building out the mine, analyzing copper and silver deposit, and then closing the audit before making a final decision. Environment groups decried, I'm not native, I don't understand. We need mining to support our modern life, but this is literally underneath a wilderness. Jeff Johnson, Deputy Director of Montana Environmental Information, previously told Montana Free Press, by some estimates, there are 500 million ounces of silver and 4 billion pounds of copper beneath the Cabinet Mountains. Helka has stated in many mines and properties in Alaska, Idaho, Canada, and some areas in Montana. While the mine is being sped through, jobs created by the mine are between 30 and 35 people for the next 16 years. Mind you, U.S. does not have robust minerals businesses, as much of America is an importer of most products, including rare minerals, but the world economy is in jeopardy with the current administration making such claims as China is basically banning rare minerals to the United States for import. However, words may make the market go up and down like crazy, and so we can't tell whether or not what's actually going to happen. So when everything is made in China, it makes it hard to come up with local equivalents, and materials tend to be imported for U.S. assembly. Hence the market with cars that might be assembled in the U.S., but most, if not all, are outsourced. So it seems very weird, and a lot of things happening as well. But let's skip ahead and talk about some things as well. Let's see, let's move forward. And actually, let's talk a little bit more about some of the legislature looking to curb your income tax, and this is part of HB 337, is a bill that doesn't get as much fanfare as many of the other property tax cuts, as it attempts to cut out the bulk of state tax revenue. So 70% of state tax revenue is from income tax. As you already know, the state takes a percentage of your paycheck with every pay period, and this law aims at reducing the full percent from 6.9% to 5.9% of your income. So Republicans voted unanimously, while Democrats erred on the side of caution, as they claimed that this would really impact the very wealthy more than the current people. So for an individual filing $50,000 a year, you'd roughly save $167 in annual savings once fully implemented. According to Montana Free Press calculations, for an individual filing earning $200,000 a year and taking the same standard deduction, the average saving would be $1,004. So the June Forte proposal in comparison would have saved $50,000 taxpayer, $5,000 earner taxpayer slightly less, with the essentially the $139 a year, while the $200,000 income taxpayer would get a savings of $1,600 a year. So the fiscal analysis concluded that the proposal will have reduced state revenues by about $304 million by the year of 2028. So those are some of the news items that are happening in and around Missoula, and I am just about out of time, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramph.